Good morning. This is Siloam Missionary Baptist Church located in Rougemont, North Carolina. I will be bringing you the Sunday school lesson for this morning, June 21st, 2020. The title of the lesson is Gideon Defeats the Midianites. My name is Charlotte Timberlake, and I will be the adult class teacher for this morning. The golden text reads, "This is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel, for into his hand have God delivered Midian and all the host." Judges 7:14. Today's aim, fact, to accept that God is able to use anyone who is willing to be faithful and obedient to him. Principle, to learn that the weakest person who trusts and obeys the Lord is stronger than the mightiest person who trusts in himself. Application, to know that even when we do not understand what God is doing, it is important to always trust him. Lesson summary. Number 1, the Midianites fear Gideon. Judges 7:9 through 14. This week's passage opens up with an incredible promise from God to Gideon. After removing the vast majority of his fighting force, God then announced to Gideon that he had given the enemy into his hand. God knew Gideon well, however, and knew that he was still afraid of what lay ahead. Therefore, he told Gideon to take his servant down to the Midianite camp and listen to what the enemy soldiers were saying. Gideon did as God directed and went down to eavesdrop on the Midianite soldiers. When he reached the outpost of the enemy camp, he saw the huge Midianite army. This does not sound like a good recipe for calming Gideon's nerves. However, he heard an incredible conversation take place between two Midianite soldiers. One man was telling another man about a dream he had. In his dream, he saw a large cake of barley bread rolling into the Midianite camp. It hit a tent so hard that the tent was knocked flat on the ground. The other soldier listening to the dream said the barley cake was Gideon from Israel. He interpreted the dream to mean that God had delivered the Midianites over to Israel. Number 2, God delivers Midian to Gideon, Judges 7:15 through 21. As soon as Gideon heard the conversation between the two Midianite soldiers, he responded with 2 acts of faith. The first thing he did was worship God. The next thing he did was rally his own troops for battle. Gideon and his army returned to the outskirts of the Midianite camp and executed one of the most unusual battle strategies ever recorded. They shouted the battle cry that Gideon had given them, blew their trumpets, and smashed their jars. Then they held their torches in their left hands and their trumpets in their right hands. The noise coming from the tiny Israelite army was so loud and intense that it frightened the Midianites to the point where they panicked instead of fighting. The Israelites stood their ground, but the Midianites fled. In a most unusual way, God brought victory to Israel. We will now go over the questions in the back of the lesson. Question number 1, what was the point of God telling Gideon to reduce the size of the army? Answer, God did not want Israel to conclude that it was by their own power or military strength that they defeated Midian. Number 2, why do you think Gideon was so fearful? Answer, Gideon had doubt. Number 3, how are the Midianites and their allies described? Answer, they are described as grasshoppers for multitude, verse 7:12, and as sand by the seaside for multitude. Number 4, what was the substance of the dream of the Midianite century? Answer, Israel's victory had been predetermined by the Lord. Number 5, how was the soldier's dream interpreted? Answer, It was interpreted as a sign of Gideon's defeat of Midian. How did Gideon respond? Answer: it emboldened him. With his faith bolstered by his visit to the enemy camp, Gideon returned to his men and called upon them to ready themselves for battle. Question number 6. What items were given to each of Gideon's soldiers? Answer: each soldier was to take with him a trumpet, an empty pitcher or jar, and a lamp or torch within the pitcher. Number 7. When did Gideon's troops attack? Answer: it was during the middle of the night. Why? Answer: because the bulk of the Midianites' army was fast asleep. Number 8. What happened in the camp of Midian when Israel attacked? Answer: those who did not immediately flee, they started fighting each other. In the darkness and confusion, they did not even know who the enemy was. Number 9. What was the long-term results of this battle? Answer: Israel enjoyed some 40 years of peace. Number 10. What did the people later want Gideon to do? Answer: they wanted Gideon to rule over them as their king. Practical points. Number 1. We can be confident in obeying God's commands because they are both for our good and for His glory. Judges 7:9-11. Number 2. God will strengthen our faith during our time of testing as we rely on Him. Verses 12-14. Number 3. Our faith is strengthened when we realize that God is in control. Verse 15. Number 4. Our commitment to the Lord assures us of ultimate victory over evil. Judges 7:16-18. Cross-reference Psalms 23:4. Number 5. God will fight for those who trust and obey His word. Judges 7:19. Number 6. Satan's weapons cannot harm the righteous. Verses 20-21. I've just given you a condensed version of the lesson today. In conclusion, no one would have thought Gideon was capable of leading an outnumbered army against a superior enemy to a victory. That is, no one except God. God saw in Gideon a mighty man of valor. That was something Gideon did not even see in himself. God used a weak man with a small army to do tremendous things. So, what do we have in common with Gideon? One of the biggest things we have in common with Gideon is doubt. We doubt our abilities and we doubt we can be of much use to God. The lesson taught us that we do not need special skills or strength to be called by God for a task. He will supply us with what we need to accomplish what He wants done. We must realize that God is with us and we must depend on Him and trust Him. Gideon doubted and would require proof, but in the end he did what God wanted and the Midianites were defeated. A few plus God is better than a majority without Him. God can accomplish great things through us if we forget our weaknesses, trust in Him, and follow His guidance. We don't have to be the biggest, the bravest, the toughest, or the smartest. We've got God. He's in our corner. He's on our side. He's got our back. We may be weak, but He is strong. And remember what the Lord told Gideon when he faced the biggest battle of his life? I will be with you. God is with us too. If He did this through Gideon and 300 soldiers, what can God do today through us? The possibilities are endless. Remember, God doesn't call the qualified, but He qualifies the called. Are you fighting a battle today? If so, turn the battle over to God and let Him lead you into a victory. Thank you for listening. May God bless you.